we've had programs in Washington that is designed for fiscal reasons, and that is to close down bases in our country and build bases overseas. But that represented foreign policy, had nothing to do. They did it, they passed it with the idea that they would close down a few bases or a bunch of bases here in this country, saying that they were going to save money. They never saved any money. But it meant that the policy was changing, that we were reaching out, going in the wrong direction. But just think of how much benefit, even if we didn't have net cuts, think of the benefits if we kept the same size military, brought them home, paid them here at home, and had to spend the money here and not in Europe or Japan. We could save a lot of money, and the major benefit of it is we would have a stronger national defense. We wouldn't be weaker. I think we're more vulnerable now than ever before. Our military, the equipment's in bad shape, and of course we're more exposed than ever before. And it's the persistence in our presence around the world that actually stimulates the hatred and motivates some willing to commit suicide. And we have to understand that. We need to quit being in their face and putting our troops on their land when they don't want us there. We would save money, there would be more money here, our military would be in better shape, and we could start solving the problem of the deficits. Because if there was an immediate announcement that we had a different plan for the Middle East, that we weren't going to redesign the Middle East, we'll let the Mideasterners redesign the Middle East the way they want it, not the way we want it. By coming home, though, we can save a lot of money, and what will we do with it? We have to restore confidence by saying we would get back to a balanced budget and cut some of the deficit. Even though that would be a long job to do it, but just the announcement and the persistence, and if they believe this, there would be a difference in the value of the dollar. The dollar responds to printing the money, but it also responds to future expectations. And if they expect us to clean up our house and live within our means, then it's going to restore confidence. I believe also that if all of a sudden we announce that we're not on the verge of expanding the war into Pakistan and expanding the war into Iran and persisting in Afghanistan and persisting in Iraq, I think the price of oil would actually go down. One of the reasons given for us to going over there was to protect our oil, whatever that meant. But you know, it really didn't do a very good job. You know, the oil was supposed to pay for the war. Of course it didn't. Production went down. The price of oil went from $27 a barrel up to nearly $100 a barrel. So it doesn't work is the big problem. And it costs us a lot of money. And then we created all the inflation because we printed the money in order to pay for this war. You print the money, of course that's more inflation, and that's one of the reasons the price of oil goes up. But this is the reason middle-class Americans are suffering today. It has to do with our fiscal policy and our monetary policy and our foreign policy, and they're all intertwined. So we need a new approach. We can't continue to do the same thing over and over again. Some people claim, well, why don't we just keep doing what we're doing at a modest rate and maybe not spread the war and this sort of thing. But you can't do that. You can't maintain a status quo. What happens if we continue to do this and we continue to spend and continue to erode the value of the dollar, eventually it will lead to a financial crisis. And that is the warning that all countries get when they're getting into trouble, is the decreased value in their currency. And this has happened so many times throughout history. So there's a big warning sign out there, and there is hardly a day now that we don't see something happening to our dollar. But you know, they talk about the price of gold going up. You know, the price of gold, the value of gold always stays very stable. If you look at the price of oil 10 years ago, it hasn't moved in gold, but it's gone up over 300% in dollars. What's happening is the value of the dollar is going down. Our dollar was worth once 1/20th of an ounce of gold. Today it's worth 1/900th of an ounce of gold, and it looks like it's going to get a lot worse. So this is very serious business, not only because the foreign policy has blowback consequences, and that is a problem and it affects our national security, but it also has the consequence of having a very severe disruption to our fiscal policy and our financial situation here at home. But then on top of that, what has been happening to our civil liberties, our rights of our privacy and our freedom here? We need to reverse that. Piece of the legislation passed after 9/11 was the Patriot Act, and you do know that I voted against the Patriot Act. Now the Patriot Act, it came up and they quickly had to do something. It was unreadable because it wasn't available, but the members of Congress feel, oh, we have to do something that's called the Patriot Act, don't you know? How can you vote against the Patriot Act? But that whole trend has continued. So it's sort of like gun control. Instead of taking guns away from the criminals, they want to register the guns of the law-abiding citizens. Now we've had this terrible episode with these terrorist attacks, but instead of being concerned about our enemies and why they come to do this, what are they doing? They're registering the American people. And what we don't need is more registering of the American people. We don't need a national ID card. Yeah! They claimed the other day that they were going to take the national ID card and not impose it and make it go into effect for a few more years. Except there's a loophole there. They said on May 1st, though, you can't travel without it. You know, you can't get on an airplane, you can't get in a federal building. So it's forcing the states who are trying to resist this to use it anyway. But even our passports, we can't go even across the border to Canada and come back unless we have a passport. So they're watching every move, they watch every financial transaction, every medical transaction, everything, and they have access to our mail, our email. They can get warrantless searches. They've repealed Posse Comitatus as well as the Insurrection Act. We no longer have protection of habeas corpus. This is serious business. Because unfortunately today we're told that the war on terrorism is perpetual. So we need to stand up and defend our liberties, and the best way to do that is read and understand and defend our Constitution. Send any more people to Washington, D.C. that haven't read and understood and are really willing to defend the Constitution. The Constitution is a unique document. It was designed not to restrain the people. It was designed specifically to restrain the government. Unfortunately, it has been reversed. It's been used and distorted, and it restrains the people, yet there's no restraint on the government. For instance, your privacy is supposed to be protected under the Fourth Amendment. But what has happened? The secrecy of government is worse than ever. And then if they get caught at something, they destroy the records. So we do need a true modern revolution in this country. We need not have a violent revolution because we still have enough freedoms left to fight this battle the way we're doing it right now. But what we would like to do is just restore the concept of the original revolution. I mean, this is what's happened. We have drifted so far from it that in the last 100 years or so, we have essentially forgotten about it. You know, when I brought up the Constitution when we were talking about going to war and I insisted that we have a declaration and they didn't want to mess with that, they told me flat out, they used the word frivolous, what I was talking about. Anachronistic. And this is how little respect they have. And it's not the executive branch, it's not just this executive branch or this Congress, but systematically over these many, many decades, the courts, the legislative branch, and the executive branch have had so little respect. But it's a consequence of a lack of a teaching that we've had in our schools. Yeah!